The sun had just begun to set over Willow Creek, a small American town tucked between rolling hills and long stretches of farmland. The streets were quiet, but alive with the familiar hum of small-town life. Brick buildings lined both sides of Main Street, family-owned stores with neon signs glowing in the dusk, a laundromat with its open 24-hour sign flickering, and a corner coffee shop where locals sipped their evening brew. Streetlights clicked on one by one, bathing the road in a soft orange glow. Families strolled by, parents holding the hands of their children. Teenagers leaned against lampposts, sipping sodas and scrolling on their phones. The smell of roasted coffee beans and fresh bread floated from the bakery on the corner. It looked like any other evening in Willow Creek, peaceful, predictable, safe. But tonight would be different. Tonight, something unusual was about to take root on this quiet street. A loud rumble echoed down Main Street. Heads turned. A shiny red and black food truck rolled slowly into view, its chrome edges reflecting the neon lights. Painted in bold letters across the side was a glowing neon sign, "Best burgers in town, guaranteed." The truck parked right near the sidewalk, in front of a small park where kids usually played tag. As soon as the engine shut off, a hiss of steam escaped from the exhaust, followed by the savory scent of sizzling meat. The townspeople exchanged curious looks. Food trucks weren't unusual, but this one was different. Its paint gleamed as if brand new, and the neon sign buzzed brightly like it belonged in Las Vegas rather than sleepy Willow Creek. The serving window slid open with a cheerful squeak, and warm yellow light spilled onto the pavement. Inside, a woman's voice rang out, cheerful and confident. "Fresh burgers, hot fries. Come and taste the best in town." And just like that, the crowd began to gather. The woman running the food truck leaned out of the window with a friendly smile. She looked to be about 35. Her skin was pale, her ponytail neat, and she wore casual jeans and a plaid shirt, just like any ordinary small-town worker. But there was something striking about her. Her eyes were sharp, alert, and almost too focused, as if she could see more than she should. "First orders are free tonight," she called. "Try it once, and I promise you'll come back for more." Within minutes, people began to form a line. A teenage boy in a baseball cap ordered first. The vendor handed him a steaming burger wrapped neatly in paper, the smell of grilled beef and melted cheese filling the air. His eyes lit up after the first bite. "This is amazing," he shouted through a mouthful, already taking a second bite. His friends rushed to order next. The vendor kept smiling as she handed out more burgers, her movements quick and practiced. The golden light inside the truck made her look almost angelic. To the hungry townspeople, she was nothing short of a savior. Word traveled fast in Willow Creek. By the time the sun had dipped lower, a black Mercedes SUV pulled up across the street. Out stepped a wealthy businessman in his 50s. His suit was tailored, his shoes polished, and a Rolex gleamed on his wrist. He was known around town as Mr. Harrison, a man who usually dined in five-star restaurants in the city. Yet tonight, here he was, walking toward a food truck with a paper plate. In his hand, people stared. Some chuckled. Others whispered. It wasn't every day that a man of his wealth stood shoulder to shoulder with college students and factory workers, waiting in line for street food. But Mr. Harrison didn't care. His stomach rumbled, and the smell from the truck was too powerful to resist. When it was his turn, the vendor greeted him with the same warm smile. "Good evening, sir. One burger and fries?" "Yes, please," Harrison said, his voice almost eager. The vendor handed him the plate, piled high with steaming food. Without hesitation, the wealthy man took a bite right there on the sidewalk. His eyes widened. He didn't speak for a moment, just chewed slowly, savoring the taste. Then he nodded, a smile spreading across his usually serious face. "This is incredible," he said softly, Dot, and just like that, the line grew even longer. Soon, Main Street buzzed with more life than it had in years. College students rushed over from the nearby campus. Workers still in their uniforms lined up eagerly. Even the mayor's secretary was spotted in line, heels clicking against the pavement as she clutched her purse. Some people carried their own plates, washing them at a nearby water fountain, just to be served faster. Others ate standing right, there in the street, ketchup dripping down their fingers. Too impatient to wait, the food truck glowed under its neon sign, the words "Best Burgers in Town," burning brighter as if feeding on the excitement of the crowd. People laughed. People ate. People forgot, just for a little while, that Willow Creek was a sleepy town. And yet, a strange feeling lingered beneath the joy, something no one could quite name. Then came the sound of laughter. Not joyful laughter, but rough and cracked, echoing. Strangely against the brick walls of the street, a homeless drifter shuffled out of the shadows of a nearby alley. His beard was long and tangled, his clothes ragged. He clutched an old bottle in one hand, though it looked empty. His eyes were wild, darting from face to face as if he knew something no one else did. "Ha ha!" he barked, pointing a dirty finger toward the food truck. "Ha! Look at you all, lining up like cattle." Some people frowned, others looked away, embarrassed. But the drifter only laughed harder, a sound that made even the air feel colder. "You're eating poison," he shouted, "poison dressed up as beef. And you love it, don't you? Ha, fools!" The vendor's smile flickered for just a second. Then it returned, calm and unbothered, as if she hadn't heard him at all. But the drifter kept shouting. His laughter rang louder, and his words began to stick in people's minds. The drifter stumbled closer, dancing clumsily in the glow of the neon sign. His voice carried across the crowd. "Snakes!" he yelled. "You're all eating snakes." Teenagers laughed nervously. One boy threw a fry at him, and the crowd erupted in chuckles. A businessman shook his head and muttered, "Crazy old man?" But the drifter only danced harder, spinning in circles, chanting louder and louder. His eyes glowed with something unsettling, not madness, but certainty. "Snakes in your burgers. Snakes in your fries." He sang, his voice scraping like broken glass. The crowd dismissed him, but unease had already planted itself like a seed in the air. And somewhere behind the food truck window, a vendor's sharp eyes glinted in the warm yellow light. Across the street from the glowing food truck stood Martha's Diner, a small family-owned restaurant that had been around for 30 years. Its windows were dusty, the neon open sign buzzed weakly, and only 2 tables inside were occupied. Martha, the owner, stood behind the counter, wiping the same glass for the 5th time. She was 40, African-American, with tired eyes and a faded apron tied around her waist. For years, her diner had been the pride of Willow Creek, serving hot pancakes in the morning and juicy steaks at night. People trusted her food, trusted her name. But tonight, her diner was nearly empty. She glanced through the window and saw the crowd gathered around the food truck. Dozens of people. Some were regulars who had once sworn never to eat anywhere else. Now they stood in line, plates in hand, laughing and cheering for the new vendor. Martha's jaw tightened. She threw the rag onto the counter. "This isn't right," she muttered. "Not right at all." Later that night, unable to sleep, Martha found herself driving her old pickup down the dark road out of town. She followed the blinking neon sign that read, "Palm Reading, Psychic Readings by Madam Sky." She parked and stepped into the small fortune teller's shop. The air was thick with incense, and candlelight flickered across the walls. Beaded curtains swayed as if moved by an invisible hand. Behind a round wooden table sat Madame Sky, an elderly woman of Native American descent. Her silver hair was tied in a braid, her long fingers covered in rings. A deck of tarot cards lay spread before her, glowing faintly in the candlelight. "You've come for answers," the psychic said without looking up. Her voice was low, steady, as though she had been expecting Martha all along. Martha hesitated, but nodded. "There's something strange about that food truck. My diner is dying, and people are acting like they're under a spell. Even the rich are lining up like beggars. And then there's that drifter, shouting about snakes. I need to know the truth." Madame Sky slowly lifted her gaze. Her eyes were sharp, almost piercing. "You are right to be afraid," she said. "The food you see is not what it seems. It is tied to something dark, something that feeds on the ignorance of people." Martha's hands trembled. "Then what do I do?" "There is only one way," the psychic whispered. She reached under the table and pulled out a small leather pouch that seemed to pulse faintly, as though alive. "Sprinkle this near her cooking pot. When the powder touches her food, the truth will reveal itself." Martha stared at the pouch, fear in her chest. "And will I be safe?" The psychic leaned closer. "If your heart is steady, you will be safe. But once you see the truth, you can never unsee it." Martha took the pouch in her hands. It felt strangely warm, the leather, smooth but heavy, as though it carried more than just powder. When she loosened the string, she saw a faint glow rising from within like powdered starlight, shimmering white with an otherworldly glow. She tightened it quickly and tucked it into her apron pocket. "Madam," Sky's voice echoed as Martha stood to leave. "Be careful. Curiosity saves the hungry, but it also damns the greedy. Choose wisely." Martha drove home, the pouch heavy in her pocket. She knew she had no choice. Tomorrow, she would go to that food truck dot the next morning. Willow Creek was buzzing again. By sunrise, people were already gathering around the shiny food truck. The smell of bacon, burgers, and hot coffee filled the air. The vendor leaned out with her cheerful smile, her ponytail swinging as she shouted, "Good morning, everyone. Fresh breakfast burgers. Get them while they're hot." Martha stood at the edge of the crowd, clutching the pouch tightly in her hand. Her heart pounded against her ribs. The people around her laughed and chatted. Completely unaware of her intentions, the wealthy Mr. Harrison was back again, this time in a casual polo shirt. College students carried their backpacks, already late for class, but unwilling to miss the food. Workers on their way to the factory held thermoses and plates. Everyone was distracted. This was her chance. Martha moved closer to the truck, pretending to study the menu painted on the side. The vendor bent down to scoop fries from the fryer, and no one was looking her way. With trembling hands, Martha untied the pouch and let a pinch of the glowing powder fall near the giant steel pot where a vendor cooked the burgers. The grains scattered across the pavement and shimmered faintly before sinking into the air. Like dust, she quickly tied the pouch and stepped back into the crowd, heart racing. At first, nothing happened. The vendor kept serving food. People kept laughing and eating. For a moment, Martha wondered if she had been fooled. But then, the pot began to tremble. It was subtle at first, a faint vibration, a small rattle of the metal lid. Some customers noticed and frowned. Others ignored it, too busy stuffing their faces with burgers. But then the tremble grew stronger. The pot rattled violently on the grill, steam hissing louder and louder, as though something inside was alive. Vendor froze. Her cheerful smile vanished, replaced by a flash of panic in her eyes. She reached for the lid, pressing it down with both hands. "Must be the heat," she said quickly, forcing a laugh. But her voice shook. People began to murmur. Some stepped back. Others leaned forward in curiosity. And then, with a deafening clang, the lid flew into the air. A burst of steam shot upward, glowing green as it filled the air. And from the pot, something massive began to rise. It was a snake. Not just any snake, but an enormous black-scaled serpent, its body thick as a tree trunk, its eyes glowing a sickly green. Its tongue flicked in and out, hissing so loudly it echoed. Down Main Street the crowd froze in horror. For a moment, silence fell, broken only by the hiss of the serpent. Then chaos erupted. People screamed. Paper plates fell to the ground, burgers and fries scattering across the pavement. Teenagers ran, dropping their backpacks. Businessmen tripped over their polished shoes, briefcases clattering to the ground. Mothers clutched their children and sprinted away. Workers scrambled, knocking over trash cans and benches in their panic. "Snake! Run! Run!" Voices shouted. Over each other, the neon sign of the food truck flickered wildly, casting eerie red light across the serpent's shimmering scales. The air stank of grease and smoke, but beneath it was a foul, rotting stench that made people gag. The vendor fought, desperately, trying to shove the lid back onto the pot. But the snake towered above her, its glowing eyes sweeping across the terrified crowd. The drifter's laughter rang out from the shadows. "I told you," he screamed, his voice wild with triumph. "You're eating snakes. You fools, you're eating snakes." Main Street, once filled with laughter and chatter, had become a nightmare. The vendor's arms shook as she tried to slam the steel lid back onto the pot. Her plaid shirt clung to her skin with sweat. Every muscle in her body strained, but the snake was far stronger. The serpent rose higher, steam swirling around its enormous body. The neon sign above the truck painted streaks of red and blue across its black scales. Its forked tongue hissed, tasting the air, tasting the terror. "Stay back," the vendor shouted. Her voice cracked, echoing against the buildings of Main Street. She grabbed a long metal spatula and swung it desperately at the serpent. The spatula clanged uselessly against its thick scales. Her eyes darted around. The crowd was scattering, but some people were frozen, paralyzed by fear. A businessman stumbled backward into the street, nearly hit by a honking car. College students tripped over each other, spilling sodas and fries as they fled. And through the madness, the drifter's laughter cut through the night like broken glass. "Fight all you want," he cackled. "You can't cook the devil." The vendor screamed, pushing again on the lid, but the snake burst upward, knocking her back against the food truck wall. She gasped as pain shot through her ribs. Her spatula fell from her hand, clattering uselessly to the ground. The serpent lowered its monstrous head toward her. Its eyes glowed brighter now. 2 burning green lanterns. Droplets of glowing steam rolled off its scales, hissing when they hit the hot metal grill. The vendor stared. Up at it, her breath caught in her throat. She could see every detail. The jagged scars across its snout, the wet shimmer of its scales, the way its forked tongue snapped in and out with a sharp hiss. The snake opened its mouth, revealing fangs longer than kitchen knives, dripping with a venom that sizzled when it hit the ground. People screamed again, running faster. A mother dragged her child away, crying hysterically. A young man dropped to his knees, clutching his head, unable to believe what he was seeing. The serpent reared back, and for one terrifying moment, it seemed ready to strike down on the vendor, where she stood. Then suddenly, the street was silent. The serpent hissed one last time, then slid backward into the pot. Its massive body coiled down into the steel container, vanishing into the rising smoke. The pot rattled violently, then went still. The vendor collapsed to the ground, coughing, her face pale. She stared at the pot, trembling, afraid to even breathe. When she looked around, Main Street was empty. The once bustling line of customers was gone. Paper plates littered the sidewalk, burgers half-eaten, and fries scattered across the pavement. A spilled soda fizzed on the ground, mixing with ketchup that looked disturbingly like blood in the moonlight. The benches were overturned, trash bins knocked aside. The neon glow of the food truck still flickered, but the laughter and chatter were gone. Only silence remained. The vendor stood slowly, clutching her side. She looked at the pot again. Steam rose lazily from its lid, as if mocking her. She backed away, her footsteps crunching on broken plates and shattered glass. Her food truck, her pride, her dream was now a haunted shell. She didn't wait. She didn't clean. She didn't even lock the truck. She just ran out her ponytail, whipped. Behind her as she sprinted down a dark alley. The plaid shirt clung to her back, damp with sweat. Her shoes slapped against the cracked pavement. The alley was lit by a single flickering street lamp that buzzed overhead. Shadows stretched long and thin against the graffiti-covered walls. Every sound echoed the scrape of her shoes, the ragged gasp of her breath, the pounding of her terrified heart. For a moment, she thought she heard something behind her, a faint hiss, a slither against the pavement. She glanced over her shoulder, but the alley was empty. Still, she kept running. At the end of the alley, she stumbled, falling to her knees. Her hands scraped against the rough cement. She stayed there, trembling, trying to catch her breath, and in that silence, she realized the truth. The drifter had been right all along. The next morning, Willow Creek was not the same. People whispered. In the streets, they avoided Main Street altogether. The food truck sat abandoned, its paint dull in the daylight. Police tape stretched across it, but no one dared go near. Children spoke of the snake with wide eyes. Parents shushed them quickly, not wanting to spread the fear. The local newspaper printed a small headline, "Panic at Food Truck Cause Unknown." But everyone in town knew better. Some claimed they saw the serpent with their own eyes. Others insisted it was mass hysteria. But the smell of burnt grease and something rotten still lingered in the air, and no one could deny it. The drifter wandered the streets, laughing, shouting to anyone who would listen. "I told you," he cried, pointing at the truck. "You ate the devil's food, and the devil came out to claim it." No one laughed at him now. People crossed the street when they saw him, but they did not mock him anymore. Meanwhile, across the street, Martha's Diner was full again. Her booths were packed with townspeople, families, workers, even Mr. Harrison, the wealthy businessman. They ate pancakes, bacon, and coffee, their voices low, their eyes still nervous. But they were eating at Martha's Diner, not the food truck. Martha moved between tables with a pot of coffee, refilling mugs, her apron freshly washed. Customers nodded to her, grateful, comforted by the familiar taste of food that was safe. Martha's smile was thin. She remembered the psychic's warning. Once you see the truth, you can never unsee it. She glanced out the window. The food truck sat in silence, the police tape fluttering in the breeze. Its neon sign was dark. Though her diner was alive again, she knew deep down that Willow Creek would never truly be the same, because they had seen the snake. And once you see the snake, you never forget. Closing narration. And so, in the quiet little town of Willow Creek, the tale of the food truck lived on. Some called it superstition. Others swore it was real. But no one ever ate from that truck again. And sometimes, late at night, when the streets were empty and the moon hung low, a faint hiss could be heard drifting from the abandoned truck. A warning, a curse, a reminder that not all hunger is meant to be fed.